Hey everyone, here we are again with the Ratitude podcast. I'm excited to be here. Challenging times right now, but I've got the perfect guest to be here with me, Amanda Towne. I worked with her a couple times this week on some really kind of cool stuff, and so we're going to talk a little bit about it. But first, let me introduce this is Amanda Towne. She's an amazing human being. I met her in the Abraham Hicks world on my very first cruise in March in the Caribbean. And we become friends since then, and it's kind of fun to talk with her. She's really into the law of attraction, and since that time, she started her own program teaching people about law of attraction and having sessions and really kind of bringing her gifts to the forefront. She's been an accountant most of her life and has that kind of brain, just like I kind of do too. And so as we move into a different kind of thinking, the other side of your brain, we have some opportunities for growth. And so, Amanda, welcome to the Ratitude podcast.
Thank you, Robert. It's so nice to be here. And yes, it was so fun when we met on the Abraham Hicks cruise in March. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And what I want to start out with, because I really want our audience to know how your brain developed, how your thinking developed, from this accountant. So first, maybe tell us a little bit about how or why you became an accountant. I remember that story, but just share that with us. So what was your thinking to go in that direction? Because just looking at you, you do not look like a normal accountant to me. Okay? But I don't look like a normal engineer either, so we're even. But tell us a little bit about how that came about and how that developed, because I think it's a fascinating story.
And it's funny because actually on my walk to the beach this morning, I was thinking about that. I was listening to an Abraham Hicks audio about the path of least resistance. And it really was about the path of least resistance for me because I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, and I remember very specifically in my high school accounting class, my teacher talking about accountants would always have a job. Every business needs an accountant, and they will always make good money. And so when she told my mom that I should really think about going into accounting because I was just naturally good at it, I thought, okay, sign me up. That's what I'm going to do. So it really was like the path of least resistance. It just been laid out for me. It was easy. I thought, money. I like to make money. And that's really how I decided to go into accounting. So I was on a very straight path to do that through college. And like you mentioned, my brain and my teacher recognized this in high school. I have a very logical, linear mind. So for accounting, it was perfect. Doing analysis type work, that's how my brain normally functions.
Yeah. And then somewhere along the way, you discovered hypnotherapy and NLP and Abraham Hicks and probably a few other things. So how did that evolve? So you got out of college, you became an accountant in Nebraska. And then what happened? How did you morph?
Yeah, so I lived in Nebraska most of my life and did the corporate accounting career and moved up the corporate ladder that way. But always felt like there was something more. There was something out there for me to discover. And a big part of my discovery was yoga. And I really got into yoga and looking into Eastern philosophy and different ways of looking at things. And it just expanded from there. And I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2013. And that's when my path really deepened. I met a friend who introduced me to The Secret and Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay. And I actually just reconnected with her. She lives just an hour from me now in Florida. And that just kept growing from there. And I found Abraham Hicks in 2017. And wow, then things really expanded. And I thought, wow, I think I want to quit my job someday and sell my house and travel. And because when you start thinking about that and having those thoughts become things you're manifesting. And so I did that in 2018, and I thought I'm going to dive deep into Abraham. I'm going to go to as many workshops as I can. I discovered Joe Dispenza, and I was always interested in hypnosis. So I met someone that was doing some training. I did her training, and then I found Marissa Peer's training with hypnotherapy. And the more that I got into it and really following my passion, I thought, this is what I want to do. This type of work, helping clients, doing the things that I was doing to get out of my mind, using yoga, meditation, hypnosis, NLP, all of those things. I thought, I want to help other people to do this too. And you and I had a lot of those commonalities of doing hypnosis training and NLP and those things, and doing the Dr. Joe work. And then we met at Abraham Hicks. So of course it's, you start to draw on people that are on that same or similar path. And so the more I got into those things, the more I thought, well, I really don't want to just go back to a corporate life. And so I started working with clients and incorporating more and more of these things. And of course, I'm an avid learner. I love to learn. My brain still likes to figure things out. So I just kept adding more modalities. I also did a training with Liz Hayes called a sync up method, working with the inner child and the inner being, which goes along very well with the law of attraction. And it also uses that emotional side of the inner child. And I also did a training with Gina Mallison that helps release resistance and helps you move up the vibrational scale. So I've combined all of these things into the work that I'm doing with clients. And it's so satisfying and so fun. And as I do this, I feel myself shifting more and more. And I still have a very analytical mind, and I can use that for the accounting still, but I've really been able to shift into this more of trusting and allowing. And it's really this syncing up of the inner child and the inner being this blended being, as Abraham says, and tuning into my own guidance and allowing that. And to do that, it's about letting go of the overthinking. And I've really been, that's been a process for me, and it has made such a huge difference for me.
Yeah, it's interesting as you were speaking and I was listening to you. One of the messages I've been giving our audience is that we all have a different path to get there. And we learn from so many different people if we got a growth mindset. And that's kind of one of the things you have to have. If you have a fixed mindset, it doesn't work so well. You have to have a growth mindset. But then every path is different. And my path is different than yours, was just different than everyone else. But just be on the path. And that's one of the reasons I started having guests, is so that people could see there's lots of different ways to get to wherever it is that you want to go. Now, I wanted to zero in on something that you said that I hadn't really thought of yet. And it's kind of a cool thing. So I want to sort of pick your brain a little bit about yoga. I've done yoga, but I've done it where you stretch, and I'm a distance runner, so I can't stretch. I can't touch my toes, all that kind of stuff. So yoga would probably be really good for me. But I'm guessing that when you were talking about yoga, it was much more than the physical part. It was that mental part. It's I don't know if it's the discipline, but I don't know that piece. So can you tell us a little bit about the yoga piece and how that came to develop, or how that was a step along your way?
And the yoga really was a mindfulness piece for me. Traditional yoga is really to prepare you for meditation. In our Western society, it's become much more about exercise, but it's much more of that. And it's the mindfulness and the meditation and preparing you for that. And I would say when I was early on my journey, I didn't know how to meditate, and I still had a racing mind. but it did connect me in my body through the breathing and being mindful of the movements. And so it made me more aware and more mindful. I just kept following that path. I did yoga teacher training, which goes very much into the philosophy of yoga. And again, it was those seeds, and you follow one thing and there's a seed that's planted and it leads you to something else and something else and something else. And I love that you talked about everyone has a different path, because you do. It depends what seeds are planted on your path and what resonates with you. And Bashar talks about this as permission slips, that we give ourselves permission slips to follow whatever our excitement is. And that's going to be different for every person. And you might follow one path for a while and then find something else and think, oh, now I want to go learn about that. And then that might lead you to something else. And it's all good. It's for everyone, just following what feels good for you and what resonates for you, because no one can really tell you what your path should be.
Yeah. Now, you threw out another name there that most people, I don't think, have any clue of what you even said. But I do, because I ran into this and I said, whoa, 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 who's that? What's that? And so you said Bashar, and I've started listening to him. He had an event in Sedona a month or so ago, and I wish I would have known about it. I would have gone to that thing. Tell us a little bit about Bashar, because I don't think our audience knows, or at least whatever it is that resonated for you.
And Bashar is another channeler. So Abraham Hicks is channeled by Esther Hicks. So Bashar is channeled by Daryl Ankena. And it's just, I love channels. I listen to a lot of different channels. Sarah Landon's also another one that I listen to. And it resonates with me because it's in infinite intelligence. Someone is channeling that information through them. So, and everyone, all the channels have a little bit different flavor. And sometimes I'll listen to Bashar, sometimes Abraham Hicks, sometimes Sarah Landon, sometimes Communion of Light. I've really gotten into Communion of Light lately. I just went to their workshop in Orlando last weekend.
Okay, so now you're an accountant. I'm an engineer. All of a sudden, we're listening to channels. I'm guessing some people don't even know what that means. So maybe you could tell us, what is a channel? And like, how in the world does an accountant listen to a channel? What is your thinking process that goes, oh, I'm just going to listen to this channel now and go, oh, that makes sense to me. Tell us how that happened.
So a channel is someone basically getting into a relaxed or meditative state so that they can tune in and they're in this receiving mode. So they're receiving from source, infinite intelligence, the universe, whatever words resonate with you. And they're flowing it through in their own words and their vocabulary. And so the first channeler that I found was Abraham Hicks, and someone was giving me a session, and we were talking about relationships, and she said, have you heard of Abraham Hicks? And at the time I hadn't. And she said, just go to YouTube, type in Abraham Hicks and relationships or love. And once I did, I couldn't stop listening. So, and it's not really about the analytical mind. When you're ready and when you hear something like that, it just resonates with you. You can feel the resonance of it. It feels like the truth. It feels like remembering who you are. So it's really letting go, because if you got in your head and said, wait a minute, does this make sense? You'd probably stop yourself and you probably just wouldn't be ready for it. But it's more of also they talk about, it's the vibration of the words, and you can feel that, you can sense the vibration.
You know, when you said, if you think about it, it doesn't make sense. The process doesn't make sense. The words make complete sense, right? Because that's what I found, is that, holy tamale, I've never heard some of messages like this from the non-physical being to us humans. And whether it's real or not, it almost doesn't matter because the messages just resonate. And like you said, it's almost like I was coming home going like, I knew this sometime, but someone has now articulated in a way that makes so much sense to me. I've got to listen to more.
Yes, and it does. It feels good when you hear it. And right before we got on the podcast, I was listening to an Abraham Rampage because you can feel the vibration of it. It's very uplifting. So I listen to a lot of channeling to keep me in a high vibration state. And it's like remembering who you are.
That's interesting. Now, earlier you spoke about mindfulness when coming back to yoga and mindfulness. So explain to our audience what that means to you. What's mindfulness?
Mindfulness is really just about being in the present moment. I can remember before I got into mindfulness and the yoga, I might be somewhere and thinking, oh, I should have done this. I should have gone there, thinking about, instead of being present where I am, thinking about all the shoulds or coulds. And being mindful is being present where you are and being present in the moment. And that's part of the thing. If you're always in your mind and thinking about the shoulds and coulds and, oh, maybe I should have gone there, you're not really in the present moment. And the joy is in the present moment. And you're not present. You really can't, you can't feel that joy completely because your mind is always off somewhere else, thinking about something else.
Yeah. Now, you also mentioned the inner child and the inner being. And you did some of that work with me this week. I've had a challenging time with this condominium remodel I've got in Naples, Florida, that isn't going to happen now for 6 months. I completely lost and I am homeless now. But Amanda and we did a couple sessions kind of in advance of this podcast because I want to see what she's doing. And she used some of this inner child inner being work. And so could you just explain that to our audience here too?
And the inner child is really that earthly part of you. So when I speak about the inner child, it's not your inner child from the past. It's not digging into your past and, blaming someone else like your family. It's really that earthly part of you that has the emotions and the desires and preferences. And that's why we come to Earth. We come to experience these things. And the inner being is this heavenly part of you that's unconditional love and infinite intelligence. So Abraham Hicks talks about being a blended being. Well, that's really this inner child and inner being. And it's when you're in alignment, you're living from that blended state. And so if you were a monk or something and living out here from the broader perspective of your inner being, but not really engaging in life, that's not really why we come here. We come here to have desires, to experience manifestations, to experience emotions. So that's including your earthly or inner child part. And so blending these two so that you're blended with your inner being, you're in alignment, you're receiving that guidance from infinite intelligence. And that's what makes life even more fun and easier. And that's what they talk about too. They talk a lot about the path of least resistance and going downstream. Because if you're always up here trying to figure it out, you can do that. And I lived that way for a big part of my life. But it's not very fulfilling. It can become exhausting. But when you tune into your inner being, you're in that receiving mode and you're receiving that guidance. You're receiving that inspiration. Go here, talk to this person. And then life becomes this series of synchronicities. And I know you're big in the Dr. Joe world, and he talks a lot about synchronicities. So he doesn't refer to it as the inner being, but he does talk about through meditation, getting in a high vibration and being receiving those inspirations and all the synchronicities and how you see those unfold in your life.
Okay, so you did this exercise with me. Do you do this for yourself too? Can our audience do it for themselves without, having someone facilitate it if they wanted to? How would they do
Yes,
that?
really, really, it's tuning in. I like to visualize a container in the heart chakra or the middle of your chest. And this is the space for your inner child and inner being. So you can imagine this energy here and syncing up with your inner being. And also, usually the session is around a wobble, as Abraham would call it, or some emotional trigger that you have. So for you this week, we were focusing on the emotions that were coming up around, your condo association. And so we focus on that emotion and allowing that emotion to move. I also use this process called calibration. And your inner being is up here vibrationally. It's in unconditional love and really doesn't waver. And the wobble is in the inner child. And so through this calibration process, we're releasing resistance and we're moving up this vibrational scale so that then you're in alignment again with your inner being. Then you're seeing the situation from a different perspective. You're aligning to higher vibration. You may get certain insights and awarenesses. And it's really listening to your own intuition and guidance at that point. And then I bring it back to this inner container of the inner child and inner being and really feeling that alignment again. And by the end of the session, you're feeling so good and feeling the energy of that.
And I have to thank you because we did a couple sessions and it was really hard on me because, I wanted to win this thing. I wanted to move into this place. I've been a year and a half planning it. And I'm the kind of guy that wants to win. I mean, regardless of what the issue is, I really wanted to win this thing. And I had an attorney that is a bulldog. I mean, he has never lost a case ever. He's a trial attorney. He's never lost a case all the way up to including the Supreme Court. And he thinks we could win this. He still does today. But, after our session yesterday, and even thinking about it today, I'm in this place of calmness. I'm at peace. And I have discovered all sorts of reasons why this upstream kind of thing is not the path of least resistance. What can I learn from it? Where should I go? Where is it directing me differently? What's the synchronicities? Like in the Celestine prophecy, I often refer to that you just open up your mind by being in that present moment and being conscious of your unconscious. All sorts of things are popping up now going like, oh, I could take that path. That's kind of a pretty cool path too. I could take that path. And even so, my attorney prepared a letter to send to the board, and I told him I don't want nastiness or anything, and he wrote it pretty legally nastily, not what I wanted. I essentially, I took his first sentence and last sentence and canceled everything in between, and essentially says, I don't want to fight with you people. I don't want to live in your community. I want to live in a loving, compassionate community. And thanks for showing me that this isn't it. I'm going to go someplace else. I'm going to sell this place, and you guys can do whatever you want to do. But thanks for showing me this isn't the place to live. Essentially that. I didn't say exactly that way, and then I felt such a release. I did my strength work and all sorts of things have been happening just as part of that process. So I thank you for doing that. If anyone needs to release a wobble, you might just consider contact Amanda because she at least helped me out. Now, I want to switch a little bit and say, or ask you about, you have started this online law of attraction group. Tell us a little bit about that, how that's going, where you see it going, what you'd like to do, sort of what your future is in this particular area.
Yes, so I started this probably 2.5 years ago. And I remember when I found Abraham Hicks, I I was so hungry for it, and I wanted to find other people to talk to about it. And at the time, I really didn't know anyone else that was into it. And I was searching for groups, and I found one in Charlotte, but it wasn't active anymore. So when I got involved in doing my own coaching, I thought I want to start a group for like-minded people that are searching for this kind of thing. So I started it through Meetup and also started a Facebook group for people to come in and talk. And I started out by having a piece of an Abraham clip, and then we would talk about it. Because in my early days too, I did find a podcast where these two women, they would talk about an Abraham Hicks clip and dissect it. And I liked that format. So I thought, okay, that's how I'm going to start. And it has kept evolving. And so now, of course, I have other channelers that I pay attention to. So I include all of those things, and it's a discussion. Also, I do a little bit of coaching too in the call. And eventually I want to have more of a focus group where it'll probably be like a paid membership, but for now it's still free because I want to make it accessible for as many people as possible. And it's so much fun to have these conversations. And I'm constantly expanding and growing and incorporating things. And so I love to talk about that. And I also love to have my one-on-one clients come to these conversations because it helps them too. We cover their wobble, and we do some coaching and talking about that, but this expands it even more. I love the energy of a group. And when someone comes and talks about how things are working for them and how things are working out well, it's like that energy propels everyone in the group. I like to think about it as leapfrogging. Someone takes a leap forward and then brings everyone along, and the next person. So it's like we're leaping forward, carrying the whole group. So I really love that dynamic of it.
Okay, so for those people that aren't so familiar, can you just kind of walk us through the 5 steps? The Abraham 5 steps, law of attraction.
So the first step is always ask. And so that's your desire. You're always, and whether you're conscious of it or not, you're always asking it. And that's part of like what you focus on. What you focus on is where you're putting your attention and energy. And the second step is it is given. So, and they also have a book called Ask and It Is Given. Everything you want, source, infinite intelligence is already lining up the components so that it can happen. Ask and it is given. And then the third step is allowing, because you've asked and you're worthy. There's no question about it. And then it's just you allowing, not getting in your own way. So that's what we do a lot of times. And that's part of getting in your head, overanalyzing, thinking about all the hows. You're not in the allowing mode when you're thinking of effort and struggle. You're in the allowing mode when the best thing is when you have a light desire or thought, oh, I'd really like that. Bam, it's already there and it shows up. As you notice this and practice this and have more awareness, you'll notice those light things that you have, oh, that showed up really quickly because you have no resistance. You're in the allowing mode. And so step 3 is allowing. Step 4 is also allowing. So allow and allow some more. And again, that goes back to being in downstream. If you're in upstream, you're pushing against, you're not in the allowing mode. And that's also the work that I do with clients. It helps release resistance so they're getting in the allowing mode. And when we're releasing resistance on one topic, it's actually releasing resistance in general because it's allowing your vibration to rise. And the 5th step is if you're in contrast, what do you do then? So in your situation where you had a desire for this remodel of your condo to happen. Well, now things happen with the homeowners association. And so you're in contrast. And what do you do about that? So step 5 moments are really important. I did a talk about this recently about contrast, and that contrast is actually always helping you. It may not feel like it, and it can be uncomfortable at times, but contrast is helping you. So in your situation, if you'd gotten in your analytical mind, you might still be like, no, I'm going to win. This is it. But you were able to release resistance and have that inner guidance, that awareness. You know what? Maybe this is really not the place that I even want to be. So you're taking a new path. So that's step 5. I'm in contrast. Now what? And so now there's even a more powerful rocket of desire. What do you want? And when we were talking about this, you're like, maybe I really want to be in Santa Barbara. I'm a West Coast guy. And so there's that clarity. So realizing it's always working out for you.
I always like to say, we move from when we were younger and didn't know that we thought life was happening to us. And, a lot of young people think that life is happening to us, and some older people. And then we evolve, and we're like, the light goes on when life is happening for us. And I thought I'm arrived. But then there's another step where life is happening from us. And I really, really like that now. Now, I want to ask you about the hot seat. You had a hot seat experience on or about your birthday, as I recall. And I've had 2 of these right now. Again, I don't know if our audience know what a hot seat is. So first, explain what a hot seat is. And then if you can, in general or more specific, whatever you want to share about your hot seat moment and how it impacted you or your life.
And I love these synchronicities because I just listened to my hot seat again this morning. Because one of the things, it was on the New Zealand cruise last year, and I went on the cruise for my birthday, and I was in the hot seat on my birthday.
Yes, what is the hot seat again?
Anytime Abraham has an in-person event, and that can be at a workshop, they do workshops across the country and sometimes out of the country. They're doing Amsterdam in June, or on a cruise, it's always a Q&A style. So anyone in the audience can ask any question. You raise your hand and they will call on people, and they say they're reading the vibration, they're reading the room, and they'll see energy. And so they'll pick someone based on that. And so I was in the hot seat on my birthday. It was so much fun. They sang happy birthday to me for several minutes. And it was a really fun experience.
Can you tell us what you talked about or no?
Well, I can. First they sang happy birthday to me. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was getting out of your mind and the process and the journey I had gone through to let go and get out of my mind. And so they started talking about, yes, it is letting go. And we want you to not entangle in the letting go, that sometimes there's a vibration around letting go. And at one point, they said something about logic, and they said following the logical path. And I said, well, but it's not logical. It's more about the sensing and feeling. And they said, yes, and the law of attraction is logical. Because when you are noticing, oh, I asked for that, it's already given, I notice how it's allowing, it is logical. Where you focus, that's where, things are showing up. So it's logical, because even if you're focusing on what you don't want because you're not being intentional, it's going to show up in your reality, and it's just logic. So that was a little fun play on words that they had with me. And we talked about sensing and feeling, and they said, yes, it's all about sensing what feels good in your emotions. And And that's something I really focus on too with clients, is allowing your emotions and feeling your emotions. We over time, we get into habits, and everyone generally seems to do this, of not wanting to feel emotions, because sometimes it can be uncomfortable. So we have different ways of coping and pushing away our emotions. And so part of this process is allowing your emotions, getting in tune with your emotions, because if you just allow yourself to feel it, that energy moves pretty quickly, and energy wants to move. And that's all part of your intuition, what feels better, and following that path. And that's logical too. It's logical to follow what feels better.
Yeah. So what's next for Amanda Towne?
Yes.
What's next? Where are you headed?
Well, I am in Miami Beach. I plan on staying in Southern Florida and just expanding, working with clients. I love working with clients, expanding the group, bringing more people into the group, and going on more of these cruises. I love the Abraham Hicks community. I love connecting with people there. And with Communion of Light, they're doing another workshop in Fort Lauderdale, March 22nd, after the next Abraham Hicks cruise. So I love this life. I'm having so much fun, and I want to keep doing more of it. I want to keep working with clients, doing this work. As I do this, I feel my own vibration rising. I feel like I've gone on this trajectory, and now it's like whoosh, the energy really starts to pick up. It feels like you hit a certain point, and it's just exponential growth. And I love that. I want to keep doing this.
So you're on the Caribbean cruise in March?
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah, fun.
So are you going to raise your hand? Do you have something to get back into the hot seat again?
It's a moment by moment thing. So I'll see once the cruise comes if I have a question. I haven't had a question on the last couple of cruises.
Okay. And if someone wanted to reach out, if they wanted to contact you, what's the best way? Where are you located?
So they can go to my website. It's www.amandatowne.com.
How do you spell Towne?
Thank you. It's Towne, Towne. So
yeah, she threw that other E on there because she must be like British or something like that, right?
English last name. So you can contact me through my website, or you can send me an email, amanda@amandatowne.com, and Towne with an E.
Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. Anything else you want to leave us with? Any other final messages that you have for our audience here on how to live a gratitude life?
It's really about focus. Pay attention to your thoughts and emotions. And the more that you pay attention and focus on what you do want, you'll find things get easier and easier. And you'll find that you'll keep attracting those better feeling thoughts. And it's like a receiving of those thoughts at that point. It's not even that you have to effort to do it. They'll just come to you. You're in that downstream then. And it's a beautiful place to be.
Thank you so much, Amanda Towne with an E, for being here and sharing the law of attraction and your path. And I wish you a beautiful, beautiful week. Thanks again. We're honored to have your
Robert.
presence.
It's been a pleasure.